Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio's fourth Wednesday Tucson-Sisters-in-Crime show. Very excited. This is such a cool organization. It is based out of Tucson, Arizona. It is part of the international organization Sisters in Crime. And so, Sisters in Crime is made up of authors, writers, readers, librarians, editors, publishers, agents, and booksellers, all with a passion for the mystery genre. And in Tucson, they welcome everybody who's actually even readers who just want to know about Southern Arizona mystery, the mystery community, or if they're writers, they welcome everyone. So I encourage you to go to the website, Tucson-Sisters-in-Crime.org. And today we're excited to welcome author B.J. Kurtz. Now, BJ is known for her young adult series Atlantis, and I encourage you to go to her website. It's bjkurtz.com. That's B and then J as the initial, Kurtz, Kurtz, bjkurtz.com. So welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Hey, this is awesome. And we're allowed to call you Brenda because on our Zoom screen, we can see Brenda now, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
I know, spoiler.
I know. Well, you know what's funny is when I was first getting into it, it was always big of pick a pen name, pick a pen name. And so I was like, well, let's just have some anonymity, and say just my initials. And then I find out later, because I got into it really young. So I was about probably 18 when I picked my pen name. And then I find out in the fantasy genre, there's this big push for female authors to use their initials so that readers don't know they're females. And I didn't even know that that was a thing. So people assumed at that point, oh, she's, doing that. And I was like, no, I was just young and naive and thought it would be really cool.
See, but that, you got to think about that. I mean, it's like almost, yeah, like, but then you had Sydney Sheldon, right? You got to think about like total, like, okay, some men are being women, women are being men. And then it's like, that balance part. Would you put your name as now? Is it too late to like say, hey?
I still like the separation. When I grew up writing and as a teenager, writing wasn't the cool thing to do on the weekends.
Right.
And so I kind of had developed almost this split personality. It's like I was somebody with my friends and then I was somebody, as my writing. And so I like it as the separation. When people call me BJ, I know exactly, oh, this is writing. Like, they're in the writing business with me. But I don't mind Brenda because obviously that's my name. So.
Oh, okay. There we go. But yeah, I wonder about that if like, guys will like, oh no, a girl wrote it. So, or a lady, a woman.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
And so,
interesting.
yeah, and it's sometimes I haven't encountered it too much when I do book signings and things. But I did, because Atlantis, there's a lot of military type of adventure in there. And there was a couple of times where there would be some people that are like, yeah, but you're not in the military, you're not a boy. So what do you know about it? So sometimes you get that. But for the most part, the people that I'm around, I think it's just, being in Arizona, I don't know, but there's a lot of friendly people out there. So I haven't encountered it on kind of that bigger stage, but
Right.
it did shock me when people were saying that, because I hadn't even thought of that being a reason why you might want to do an initial. And yet it's a big thing. Like, more and more authors I talk to, it's something that they really, really considered when they picked it. For right now, like I said, for me, it's just, that's my identity as a writer. That's the name that I picked on my books. And it's still me because it's still my initials. It's not a name that I made up, so it's
Right.
has a place in my heart for sure.
It's interesting you say that about the military too, because we got women in military. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We started off strong on this show. Hear me roar. No, it's funny. We do a military history show, on Select Mondays, and we have especially Mike Wardia. He's our military historian, and he comes on. He was a teacher. I know you're also in education, and he's so patient. Nancy, is he the most patient
Yes.
person with us? And but he's one of these people you can throw out any like question or like I don't care if it's a year, it's a war, or what kind of what he has the answer to it. But he comes on and we talk technical tanks and aircraft. And I mean, this is stuff we have no clue about, but we'll like read his books and go, okay, you're going to have to absorb it. But he's a good writer. He's an amazing writer. And so, we're able to identify. And I've seen some of the comments on YouTube were like, two chicks interviewing a military dude. This is interesting. And I'm like, yeah, man.
That's right.
You don't have to be. Yeah, women are kicking butt in military, so that's cool. So let's go back now. Okay, so
sure.
This all started in high school for you, writing. What turned you on into writing?
I started writing in the 6th grade. I had a teacher. She called it Writer's Workshop, and it really was just the purpose was to teach peer review. But we had to write like a chapter or a short story every week and then go through the process of peer review. And I fell in love with it. And so at the time I was listening to country music, and that was back in the 90s when it was a lot of storytelling, right? So I would start writing short stories based off of the songs that I was hearing. So like Reba McEntire has a song, Bobby. That was one of, like, I wrote a little short story based off of that. And it just blossomed until about sophomore year in high school. I was in a world history class, and that teacher said, they'll discover Atlantis in 7 years. And it struck me, and I was like, wow, that would be really amazing if they did. And so that's how the story developed of, this Atlantis. And then of course, my brain, it's funny because I grew up reading Mary Higgins Clark and, suspense novels, and here out pops this fantasy novel because I move it to my own world, and, there's sword fighting and people change shapes and,
cool.
All this kind of fun stuff in there. But there's still that mystery element to everything that I write. And I think it's because of that background. But yeah, I've been writing for a long time. And like I said, it's part of my identity, is to be a writer of some sort.
Does it help you in teaching? Because of being a storyteller, being able to get the information to your students and have them absorb it.
Oh, for sure. So I taught math, which,
Oy.
Yeah, exactly. That's the response I always get.
I'm running for the hills.
No,
exactly.
No.
Yeah. And so, but
That's
what
funny.
I found, because when I went to college, I was an English major, and then I had kind of a business background. And I was like, well, a lot of people are English majors, so let's, minor in something. And I picked math, mainly because a former math teacher kind of made me feel guilty for not, because she knew I was good at it. I didn't have the confidence in it until later on. I kind of realized, oh, okay, yeah, I guess I am pretty good at this. But when I was teaching, I found myself being able to describe the concepts and link connections, and then just that explanation of, diving into a topic. So it's not just, you do this, and this. I could explain it and explain why. And I do feel like that ability just to, have that writing aspect to it, to have that control of the English language, so to speak, really did help me. And, not to toot my own horn, but I got pretty effective at it, in the instruction of it. So that in our little high school in Benson, where I taught, I was able to grow this program so that it was, we were able to even offer calculus for college credit, and kind of, and what I loved about it was that students who were like, they have this identity, I suck at math, because that's, everybody that walks into a math classroom, that's what they say, right? I suck at math. And so to get them to make those connections and to realize, no, you're actually really good at this, was the joy of teaching, and then to build them. And I had people in my calculus class that came out of it and they're like, man, I never would have thought, but I do feel like it's highly connected to that ability to explain it. I didn't just know how to do the math, I could explain it in a way that they, would click for.
So your Atlantis series, that's all young adult fiction?
Yeah, it's kind of young adult, new age. It but yeah, it follows a girl. You start with her when she's 10 years old, kind of being manipulated by the system for her abilities. The Atlantis is in the middle of a really big war. And so you follow her and a man that's assigned to be her protector. And what I love about all of my stories is I always look at the flawed characters, right? So he's flawed in and of himself, just of the, his ego kind of gets in the way, his wanting to buck the system. And here he's in charge of this girl that nobody else wants to try to protect because it's such a hard situation. And you just follow them, and you follow this dynamic that really turns into a father-daughter's type of relationship as she grows up. And what was really neat with the series was I started writing young. And so I felt like I was growing up with her, throughout the series. So some of the things she would go through, I was kind of going through in my own ways, like obviously not exactly because I didn't have, people attacking me and going to war and things like that.
Sword fights?
Yeah, exactly. No sword fights or anything.
Calculator fights. It's a new remote control zap.
Well, did you pick up different characteristics for your characters from people that you'd see? Like Lisa and I, when one of our favorite places to people watch is Las Vegas, because there's so many different kinds of people. And sometimes we'll be eating and we'll look across and we'll make up a story about people a couple tables down, just because of their mannerisms, how they're talking, what they ordered for food and such. So, you pick up characteristics based sometimes on physical presence, but sometimes more on their body language and how loud they speak or what's going on at the table. So do you people watch and kind of pull, I want that person's eyebrows and that person's nose and put them all together and make a new person?
Yeah, to a certain extent, I think we're influenced by a lot of people around us. And so Nicias is the main character in the Atlantis series. He's the flawed character, but very much his strength and his fatherly figure was very much like my own father, kind of that bond and that relationship. But yeah, it's funny because I'll find myself if I'm, sitting in a waiting room and don't have a book or walking somewhere, you just start to notice people, and then I find myself staring, and then I have to go, oh no, that's rude, like stop that. But yeah, you do find yourself interested in what's that story there, with this situation that's going on with, even if it's just a couple walking, in the mall. It's like, what's that situation there? What do, how did they get together? It's like what challenges they face. So yeah, I think there almost is a nosy aspect to being a writer in that respect, because you do watch and learn. When I first started, I also picked up, I can't remember the name of it now, but it was a book solely on body language. As for me, my strength was always dialogue. So like the very first books I would write would be just straight out dialogue, like no prose really anywhere, like more like a movie script. And so I read into this book of talking about, okay, like, people that do this, they're exerting like this sort of power, or, this is how like you can show like somebody's shocked. And so I found that helped me a lot too, to then start to notice that in where I'm looking, so that, I've seen that in other people, but I didn't realize it. Even though I see them do it and I interpret it in the way the book was saying, they interpreted it in, I never really put that together until, or just even conferences. So, there was, for a long time growing up, there was a big conference that would always take place in Tucson. And so my mom and I would go up there. And again, I was underage, so she would go to chaperone me. And we were always kind of the mother-daughter, sort of team there. But just being in those workshops and hearing people talking, that helped a lot too, of, you know, of talking about this is how you could describe this, or this is how people act here. So that really helped a lot as well. But yeah, definitely people watching is part of my characteristic.
I wonder if it would help writers to go and be part of an acting class.
Oh yeah, I loved acting in high school. I did just a little bit. Never made it to a big stage or nothing like that, but I loved it. And like you said, just I really feel like it goes hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
Because you're pretending to be somebody else, and that's when you're writing. You're doing that just in a written form, where you're pretending to be somebody else. And how would it feel to be in that position and to go through those things? So like when I was doing my latest novel is called Shattering Boundaries. And the main character, one of them, she has such a scarred history. And so she's, her responses to situations would not be my response. And that was something that I really had to wrap my head around, of saying, okay, I would respond in this way because I had a loving background and, you know, and everything, and didn't have these challenges, but she's not going to. So just talking to the school psychologists at my school, and just, you know, really diving in, because they see all these kids with these challenges that they have to overcome. And I saw that a little bit in the classroom, but then to, you know, talk to them and dive into even more, you know, of really seeing, okay, how would they respond? So talking to people in the industry, and really just diving into it and doing a character breakdown. You know, this is her history. This is what she fears the most. This is what she, you know, strongly desires. Just having that background really helped me with it. But yeah, it's just like you said, it's the same thing you do for acting, right? You really have to embody that person. That person's not you. It's not how you would respond. So where do they come from? What drives them? So yeah, I would definitely, you know, encourage just that acting sort of component to it. One, it's fun.
Well, that's what the role playing. Well, there's, you know, and a lot of, like, was it cosplay? You know, at all the festivals and everything. And I'm telling you, man, the world's going to go crazy once COVID's totally gone, man. Cosplay is going to be, we're going to be like driving somewhere all going, what's that happening around on that street? You know?
I know. I did Tucson Comic Con a couple of times, sold my books there. And that was the best part, was watching just the costumes that would come by and the characters. And some of them were characters that were in mainstream media, but then some of them were their own creation. So yeah,
that's cool.
I can't wait, you know, for the world to kind of come back so that that expression of creativity can be out there again. I think that in this last year, it's almost been stifled in a way, because, you know, we couldn't do it in the same way as we could before. So to be able to see that again, see that creativity flowing, that, you know, to me, I'm waiting so desperately for that, you know, just have that inspiration of it, and to see it.
Yeah. Well, fantasy, I think what's such an interesting thing with it is fantasy and mystery do go hand in hand. Because fantasy on its own, when you think about it, it's like, oh, the sky's a limit of anything is possible, which means there's mystery, because it's not what's normal to what we put in, like, our bread and potatoes kind of lifestyle. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, you still have to drive a plot, right? You know, and to a certain extent, and I've read some fantasies, especially like 80s type of fantasy novels, where it's the world that is driving the book, you know, just the creativity of this world building and what's there. But for the most part, you know, for me to drive a plot, it's that mystery, it's that question, it's, you know, that suspense of what's going to happen. You know, I put my characters in the most difficult of challenges, and it's like, how are they even going to get out of this? So there definitely is a whole bunch of mystery inside of fantasy, you know, and things to discover.
Well, go ahead, Nancy. Sorry.
I was just going to say, with characters, the reader has to be able to relate to the character. So even if your character is, I don't know, somebody from outer space, an alien kind of, you know, some.
Why do you always go there?
Because it's fun. So maybe they're not even human. Maybe they're a little human, little not human. But in order to relate to them, especially when you can't see them, like, you know, on television or something, part of that character has to relate or pull something out of the human reader so that the reader can remember even who they are in the book.
Oh yeah, for sure. That reminded me of, I heard a critique about, so Despicable Me came out, right? And the very first movie that came out from it, they talked about the minions and how crucial those characters were to the whole plot, because the minions showed you there was something lovable about the main character. There was something to like there, you know, because all of these, you know, thousands and millions of minions are so devoted to him. And I thought that was so true, because it really did show, yeah, there's something likable here. There's something that that, like you said, I can relate to you. And then you follow his story and you follow, you know, how he's going about trying to do something. And then you get his backstory of why he's doing those things that might not, you know, that are the evil things. But yeah, I think that no matter what you build, whether it's, I mean, think of all of the shows that have little robots, they all have personalities in them, right? You know, because we have to relate to them and we have to care about what happens to them. So there has to be a redeeming quality and a humanistic quality that we can see inside.
Yeah.
I think that's why Star Wars did so well. You know, definitely relatable qualities. The other thing too, like when you're doing a mystery and it's something where these creatures or people, you're writing some, you know, fantasy, again, mystery is so connected. And you're saying you put your characters through all these different, you know, predicaments and they have to get out. You've got to think about everyone's creativity. And a lot of creative people will read creative stuff, right? So you'll read other fantasy authors. And so you're an author. Now, when their characters are in a predicament, you're going to try and figure out what it is. That's why people read crime and mystery. It's like, who done it? To be able to outwit everybody to the end has got to be one of the hardest things to do, because you have to be more than one step ahead of your reader. And sometimes, like, you watch TV or movies, the same thing. I mean, well, you know, Nancy and I will watch stuff together and she'll be like, this is what's going to happen. And I'll be like, no, but she's always going to be right.
Yep.
You know,
yeah, I get pretty good at predicting. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I get really angry though when I feel like the author cheats, right? So they bring up this random character that you never even saw before and they end up being the person. And it's just like, no, like, an author I felt like really did a great job of that is Greg Iles. Has like all of these thousands of plots going on, and I could never see how, like, where he was going with it. And then I get to the end and it's like, man, like you could see the connection once you found it out, you know. And I thought of the skill involved in that, because like you said, the whole way through, you know exactly, or at least I do know exactly where I'm headed, and I want to give you breadcrumbs along the way, but I don't want to give it all away, you know, too soon, that people see halfway through the book, oh, this is where we're going with this, you know. That's not fun. So yeah, part of the intrigue of writing is trying to craft a story that's going to keep that attention, keep that page turning, adrenaline going, you know, to get you there, and then have a satisfying conclusion where it's, you know, you didn't cheat to get there. Everybody had everything, you know, that they could get there. And then you have this resolution that comes together and makes sense and is satisfying of the mystery that was there.
Yeah, part of the fun of a mystery is trying to figure it out. And if at the end of the book or the movie, whichever it is, if suddenly the person who committed the murder hasn't been in the book at all ever and drops in from outer space, you're like, no, no, that's not fair.
No, or it's a character that's been there, but then it's like all of a sudden, you know, and it's like, and all the evidence is pointing to one person, and all of a sudden they find this one little thing that points back. Yeah, it's like a cheat, right? You know,
that sucks. Yeah,
it does suck.
You gotta, it's like, oh, I just dropped this in there. I've watched movies like that, and you're just like, dude, and then it'll just end like that, and you're like, what was the point? what was the point of the whole thing, you know?
Yeah.
So writing Atlantis at this series and being young adult, you know, it seems like it's when you put characters into, you know, conflicts or a predicament or a situation, it's always about how you're going to get out. Is that something when you think about, you know, being in education, that you want those situations in there, not just for a good story, and that's the way life is, but yeah, that's the way life is for the young adults to be able to, you know, feel like, oh, I can become a hero. I can get out of situations to find themselves.
Yeah. I especially, so I left teaching and I went more into like an administrative role. And seeing that side of it, you saw the struggles of students before, but seeing the other side of it, you could really see. And it impresses me and inspires me so much. Some of the things that these kids that they have to overcome, you know, it's like, it's not a roses sort of life, you know, that they're living. They have these challenges, but to try to inspire them of saying, but you can get through that. Like, you know, you can be up against so many odds stacked against you, but if you, you know, just kind of fight with it, get the help that you need, really push forward, you know, you can succeed in that. And I think that all of my stories really have that element to it of just finding that strength inside of you that you didn't even know you had. And that just pushes you and you can, you know, be up against, and that's what I love about the fantasy and paranormal genre is you're up against something that is completely above you, right? You're just sort of a human sort of sitting here and you're up against this huge force, and yet you can overcome it. And I think that is inspiring. And I do hope that inspires others, you know, who read it of saying, yeah, I can be my own hero. I can get through what you know, whatever is challenging me, you know, and to look at those strengths. Maybe those things that I thought were flaws in myself are actually my strengths that are going to push me forward. So yeah, being in education really, I think, helped me with that aspect of the plot of, you know, because, well, I mean, things in high school are always dramatic anyway, right? You know?
Oh my God, yeah. Glad I'm out of it.
Yeah, but, now.
I know. But just, you know, having that of just their passion, because while it's all dramatic, they do get so passionate and to see, you know, the youth that have so much potential. And can do such great things and to see that start to blossom and grow in them. What I love about teaching at a small school is just that you don't see a student just 1 year and they go away and you never see them again. You know, you see them for all 4 years and you can see just this person just blossom in front of you.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And it's just, like I said, that's what keeps us in education. Despite all of the challenges and you know, like you had said, this year definitely was a challenge. But seeing the kids rise above that is definitely inspirational. And if my characters can be any fraction of as strong as they are, then they're succeeding.
I love that. And I think also, well, let me go back to your book, the Atlantis series. How many have you written now?
So the Atlantis
You've
series,
got a long page on your website.
I know. The Atlantis series, there's 3. And then I'm in the middle of writing the 4th novel. And then the others are a little bit more paranormal. 2 of them actually take place in Sierra Vista, where I grew up, cool. Which was fun. But there's 3 of those, and they're standalone novels. So they are my break in between the series. I tend to get bored, you know, so I write one of the Atlantis and then I move on to something completely different and create a new world. And then I move back to Atlantis because it is just such a place that draws me back to. So 3 Atlantis and then 6 total books.
Wow.
You know, you say about the boredom factor. I was thinking about this the other day, about how creative people get bored and people go like, well, what's wrong with you? You're not just satisfied with anything. You know, it's like, no, we're not.
What kind of voice was that?
We got to talk about that. If we get bored, like, okay, no, it's not. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that is part of the creative process. If you don't have that boredom, that's kind of like a quality control. And it means that you need to go out and do more,
Yeah.
testing of the waters. You need to go do some more challenges so that you can get better. I think about like musicians and artists, it's like if you don't get bored with singing the same song all night in every gig that you do as a musician, well, then you're complacent.
Right.
And I think boredom is a good thing. And they talk about that with kids. This kid's bored. Oh, then it's like, oh, you've got ADD or whatever it's all called, ADHD and whatever. And sometimes I think it just means your brain is creative and creating and you want to do things,
Well, and there's so many different ways to be creative, right? So growing up, I mean, I would scrapbook. In high school, I did kind of sculpture art, which it was never something I could be talented enough to make a career out of, but it was an outlet, right? Reading and writing, it just, all of it goes together, where you just have this creative way to express yourself. And I think it is healthy to have multiple things, because otherwise, like you said, you get into a rut, right? And then that almost stifles your creativity. It almost kind of brings you down a little bit. If I find myself not being creative in multiple outlets or not being around creative people. So I love going to like the Sisters-in-Crime meetings and just being around other writers and talking to them and just getting inspired by them. I think that you need that as a creative being. Sure. Otherwise you do kind of get bored and get in a rut. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll walk away. Maybe I won't do this anymore. And so I think, you need that re-energizing every now and then to push you along. But definitely in multiple aspects, it shouldn't always be just writing. We can be creative in a lot of ways that can inspire us.
I think because we're human and herd animals. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. You need feedback. And when you want to test a new idea, people who understand creativity or writing, whatever, even if you're a chef and you want to test a new idea, it's good to have another chef around to talk to and give you new ideas or twist things up a bit. And then it's also good to go to like the total opposite and see if you can interest someone in something that you're interested in and how best to draw them in, especially when you're writing a book, how best to draw someone in. Maybe they think they're not interested at all until somebody says something or shows something that does somewhere in their makeup go, oh, well, maybe I should have a look at that. It's kind of interesting, and then draw somebody into a book, like, especially when you're talking fantasy, because I think you have people who, if it's not real, I don't want to know about it.
Right.
Now, how do you pull them into a fantasy novel?
So, and that's the hardest part, right? Anytime when I'm pitching my novels, there's that hesitation you can tell from somebody. And what's really funny is my dad was the same way, where he wanted to be grounded in reality. And so the moment you start talking about, characters that can move things with their minds, or a girl that can shapeshift into a wolf, they're just cool. No,
I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there's some that that's the way they are. And I let them be that way, because it's okay. It's okay not to like that, to branch out that way. But for me, the way that I try to capture them is my stories are not about, the fact that she can shape into a wolf. It's about that girl and her relationship with that father figure and the challenges that they face, and their challenges that we all kind of face, the wanting to belong, the wanting to find your place in this world. And then, being manipulated by others that are around you. And how do you get out of that? And so it's really that it's like, you know, I'll talk to some people, especially if they see me multiple times at different events that I go to, and, you know, and finally they'll be like, okay, like, I'll try this. Like, which one is the most mellow that I can try as far as that? And so I'll, you know, point them out. Well, if you like this or you like this, and normally what happens, and it's such a joy that they'll leave with one and then they'll come back and they're like, you know, I never liked that genre before. I never thought I would read that genre, but it really did capture me. And it's the characters and their story, because the novels really are character-driven pieces. And so fantasy is almost a sideline to that. It's just a background, you know, it's something that they happen to do, you know, it's like, you know, one character might happen to mountain bike. She just happens to shape into a wolf, you know, it's just something that's there. It's about her. I think that grabs them.
What's interesting too, like on your website, I like that you have on your different books that you can meet the characters and kind of get that connection with them immediately. But, you know, going back to that, I mean, how do you get people into fantasy and paranormal? It's interesting because those who are in it are in it. And they're like, okay, now you've got to go like beyond, like how, you know, the sky's the limit, but like how there's that balance of being too over the top and yet also being, okay, this is just normal now. It's not, we're not even fantasy anymore, because now, you know, does that make, there's like the different bars of how far you can go.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, even in the fantasy and paranormal fans, you know, there's an expectation in that genre too, of what they're looking for and how far they want to go with it. You know, because there are those that they want the world building. They want, you know, the unique aspect of it. I know for me, whenever I read like an urban fantasy, I love it when an author goes outside of the box. You know, it's like the vampire is not the normal vampire that you would see, you know, it's maybe more like a monster, you know, than an actual vampire, more like an animal.
It's a frog.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
I mean, why not? Why can't a frog be? I mean, why not? And I think, but part of this whole thing about people in paranormal and fantasy is fear. And there's a fear to going, like, I don't want to know about it. It's like psychics. I don't want to know about them. I don't want to know about this stuff, but there could be, I mean, there's this and this. And, you know, it's like, oh, do I have to open my mind to something that is just something I don't understand? And so that's that whole thing. And that is part of education. Then the other side is that deep down, we all know there's something bigger than just right now in reality. How, I mean, the biggest question is, how the heck did we get here? We can go into religion. We can go into the Big Bang Theory. We can go into everything. We can go play Dead Sea Scrolls. You know, we can do whatever you want, but something like, what is it? Like, we all have these ideas, and to not explore it is, I mean, why? I mean, you could be an alien and I don't know. I mean, come on. So what? Maybe I'm part
Let's have an alien show.
Well, because if you look, some people have a certain look. I'm not saying you're an alien. And if you were, I think that'd be so darn cool. But some people have, like I say, there's subspecies of people that don't go by race. They go by, I don't know, some part of a different universe. Like some people, like the doppelganger thing around the world, you can see people that have a doppelganger thing, and male and female doppelgangerisms. So I believe there's aliens across. Anyway, there it is. I'm getting started.
No, it's fine. Is
it almost wine time?
Yeah, really.
No, I mean, but that's true though, right? I mean, I think there is kind of this fear of the unknown, and what if that weird thing that she's writing about in this book actually existed?
Manifests on the page as you're reading it.
You know, I mean, because after all, it's like, wasn't it that they started writing about submarines before there ever were submarines, right?
So, downward periscope. And now, well, look, now we got ebooks, Kindle, like all of that digital. Now digital's animated too. I mean, come on, like when, I mean, 20 years ago, did we think we could be watching a video in a book?
Yeah.
Did you think we could FaceTime Zoom like we're doing? Come on.
You know, what's funny is I read Ender's Game, and they described, it was an iPad. I mean, that's what he was describing, but this book was written in the 80s. And it blew my mind, because I was like, again, back then, would you even have thought that you would have this itty bitty computer with a screen that you could play videos on and interact with and play a game on, you know? I mean, it just what marveled me that he would think of that, you know, back before it even was something that was even on the map, right? So yeah, I mean, why not? Why not for Paranormal 2? Why not?
Why not is the best question on the planet. Why not? Nancy was just saying, you know, was it Star Trek, Nancy? We're playing Star Trek now.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I could push a button. Are you still there? I think we need to start dressing up for all these Zoom things. That's it, man. I want to come in dressed as whatever.
Oh, it's different characters would be fun.
Yeah.
There you go. You get into that cosplay thing. Now you're getting in my world over here.
Now, see, Bob, we should have done that. We should have all just been dressed up and go for it. So at these cosplay things, okay, so people dress up. Now, if you are coming as your own character, how does that work? Like, you know, if you wanted to go to a character in your book, people would know about your characters. Or if I wanted to go first time and said, like Nancy, she's babushka. She's a fortune-telling mama babushka, and she's got supernatural powers. Trust me.
Yeah, there you go.
She does. If she wants to beam me up or beam someone else Scottyland, she will do it. So what is the communication like in that kind of, do people have to know, do you have to go, here's my character and these are the traits, or do you just, what happens?
Yeah, I've never tried to dress up as one of my characters, but I think that would be hard, right? It'd be fun, but you talk about creativity in a different way. You know, because I think when somebody reads a character, and you always get this when they change a book into a movie, right? Is that everybody has this image of what that character looked like in their mind. And so how do you embody that and stay true to that character? And that's why, like I said, they have movies that come out and people are like, all the readers are like, oh, that's not that person. Like, oh my goodness. And so it would be hard for sure.
Yeah.
That's why I always ask people, take your main character out of a novel, and what actor or actress would you choose to play that part? And then once you start thinking around those lines, you're like, well, okay, that person would fit except for this and that. And then the actor has to say, but I can act that. I can change into it. It's really weird when that whole process of pretending to be somebody else's idea because they didn't write the book. So they're going to now become a person you made up. It's kind of really weird, don't you think?
That would be really weird. It'd be cool if somebody like showed up and said, hey, I'm Pandora. You know, it's like, that would be really awesome. But yeah, that would be kind of weird. But I mean, I know I follow author friends on like Instagram, and they'll do that. They'll say, here's this actor, right? You know, does this embody so-and-so? And then to hear the interaction from the fans of, oh no, or, oh yeah, that's perfect. You know, and really just to get
that's a good way of doing it. That's a good way of doing it, because when you're reading, you're co-creating. I always talk about that on these author interviews, and, you know, because reading is a personal journey. It really is. Whereas a movie, it's all spelled out and it's not co-creative, and you're absorbing. Well, it is kind of, because you still have to have a connection, an emotional connection, right? But it is these two different things. And so, yeah, when you're reading, it's personal, and no one can really tell you what that character is going to look like, even though the authors, you know, blonde hair, this, that, whatever, but you still kind of start in your, it's a beautiful thing about reading is it does get people into the creative process. People who think they have no creativity, if you read, you have creativity, because you're starting to envision characters, you're envisioning the scene, you're, you know, all of that, and no one can really take that away from you. And you're probably piecing together of people and friends that you know, so it's a very, that the cosplay thing and reading are just it's interesting to me about that, you know. getting everyone to kind of have that co-creative thing. But yeah, and I just, this is cool. I do think we should all dress up though next time we all do a Zoom. That's it. I just want to go. But it's exciting. We just interviewed an author, J. Lawrence Matthews, and his name is Jeff. Anyway, he wrote One Must Tell the Bees, and it's a historical fiction of Sherlock Holmes meeting Abraham Lincoln and then chasing John Wilkes Booth. I mean, this is cool, know. So this is like, whoa, who would have thought that? I'm like, this is some crazy, crazy stuff. But he's in the process of doing his audiobook. And so he's interviewing or, auditioning, I should say, voice authors. And I'm like, that is some interesting stuff, because he said like Sherlock Holmes had this certain voice and he wants someone to come in with the voice that's in his head. And I'm like, you could be there for years.
Right.
That's got to be, Sherlock Holmes is Sherlock Holmes, though. You know what I mean? You got to think it's a little different, but.
Yeah, but Sherlock Holmes isn't real.
I know, but still.
I mean, so the voice could be anything.
You can't have a squeaky
obviously would have to have a British accent.
Yeah. But I mean,
I was going to say the mannerism of speaking, like, I don't think a Sherlock Holmes can go up and go, hey, dude, how's it hanging? I mean, you don't have anything like that.
That would be my Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. But yeah, that would be interesting I actually, so I thought of how my characters might look, but I never thought of how they might sound. But there is something to be said for like this character would have more of a commanding voice because they command, this army and people follow them or whatever, versus like there's a character named Hermes in my book. He would probably have more of a softer, laid back approach because he's not a strong, powering kind of push his weight, sort of character. So that is interesting to think of it in that dynamic of what would they sound like for an audiobook. Because definitely if somebody is invested in that character, you do want that voice to embody that character that you've created on this page.
It's kind of a different element. Like the audiobook thing has just exploded, and it's getting interactive as well, which I think for fantasy and paranormal, that's got to be interesting. Like they're saying that you can go from listening to reading your Kindle, and it'll know where you listened up to in your ebook, which is some crazy stuff. So now, see, talk about woo woo, man. They didn't talk about this in the 80s when I was in high school either. I was like, no way. But when you think about how far we've come on that, but having the voice, now the voice is a little different. It's not like you're doing the whole full-blown actor thing, so it's that it can help with the creative process for someone getting engaged into the reading part of it. I think you still have that visual, and audio is huge. I know we're doing our new video Zoom thing for YouTube and Facebook, but people listen a lot because they're doing things, they're driving, and when you're driving, let me tell you, you need all the listening you can get.
Yes.
So yeah, this is really cool. Well, good for you. What's next? What's coming out next? What are you working on?
It's the fourth novel in the Atlantis series, and so in each book I travel to the different countries in that world I create. And they do ambassador type of work. But this one is a lot of fun for me because it takes the first three books, events that happen to these characters, and it kind of brings, this climax of the characters' arcs, of they have been through these things. There's things that have happened in their history, and they all start to come together in unexpected ways. And each one of them have to really find out who they are, and they're going to be changed through this process of the challenges that they face with their past coming back. So it's nice in that it's taking all three books and really bringing it together. And I wouldn't call it necessarily a restart of the series, but it's definitely going to pivot the way that the series is going to head from here. but a lot of fun, you know, with that, and diving into these characters, and really getting into their stories. So that's the one I'm working on right now.
Cool.
Yeah.
So everyone, bjkurtz.com is the website to go to, Tucson-Sisters-in-Crime.org. So obviously, yeah, that's a nice big, you know, fellowship for you as well as educational, because I know people come in and teach you all about guns and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'm like, she's got laser lights. I don't know.
Well, they even they had a border patrol guy come and talk about tracking, and that actually helped me in my third Atlantis book, because they had to track something, you know. And so I was like, oh, this is cool. I can't do the machines, but you know, so yeah, it's been very educational to attend.
Oh, that's cool. Awesome. Yeah. Last question, because you know, there's something about paranormal and fantasy that to me goes with music. Do you listen to music while you write, and do you have playlists for your books?
Yeah, there's definitely, so I listen to all kinds of music, just on a daily basis. I've always been that way. Even when I'm at work now, you know, if I'm on my computer, I have music playing, but writing has always had music, and then even candles burning, you know, to get there. And it's always a certain type of a mood of a song that really gets it, you know, and really captures it. So some big ones like Sarah Bareilles, I'll listen to a lot when I'm writing, and just, I don't know, there's something about it that just stirs up that creativity that I need, that almost stirs up that emotion, right, that you need to really dive into.
So it's like creates an atmosphere for you in a way.
Exactly. And then if the Arizona monsoons are happening, then great things are going on my computer that day.
Right on. What is it with the monsoons? Rock.
I don't know, but the clouds roll in, and I'm like, this is a writing day. Like, I'm gonna be knocking it out.
It's moody.
Yeah.
You know, it's very moody. It's cool.
I love I miss the monsoons. Yeah. I hope we're gonna be in Prescott, Arizona, probably when this airs. So I'm like, come on, we want some monsoon action. I love the monsoons, but I heard last year was pretty dry compared to
it was
normal.
A dud. It was, it didn't show at all. So we're waiting. We're like, come on, like it's got to be good this year. Yeah.
Your body literally, when you don't have a good monsoon season, your body physically, you know, we still live in Tucson, and you know, we still consider it home, but with your body's like the plants going, I need the monsoon. It's my extra season. What do you mean I only get half of a one? I get a lightning bolt, but no.
Exactly.
I want the whole thing. That's awesome. Well, kind of, you know, when you think about like King Arthur and all of that stuff, there's always like the big lightning bolts, and there's something about that energy that comes from it. So anyway, I'm tripping out, man. It's good chatting with you.
Yeah.
Thanks for tripping us out and going on a good journey. It's been a wonderful conversation. Again, everyone go to bjkurtz.com. That's Kurtz, bjkurtz.com. And your books are on Amazon, all those places?
Yep, right on there.
Awesome.
And listen, go to your local bookstores. I'm just saying, and ask for them. That's the other thing too. We got to support our local bookstores as we can. So, well, thank you so much.
Yeah.